Good morning. Thank you so much for joining us for Sunday School at To God Be the Glory Ministry. I welcome you to check out our website at www.tgbtgm.org and feel free to give to us on our website or through Givelify, where you can search us for To God Be the Glory Ministry at 1313 Caps Hill Mine Road in Charlotte, North Carolina, 28216. We're continuing with Casket Empty, which stands for Creation, Abraham, Sinai, Kingdom, Exile, Temple, Expectation, Messiah, Pentecost, Teaching, and Yet to Come. And the purpose is to tell the one story of redemption from Genesis to Revelation. Last week, we talked about what happened with the northern kingdom of Israel. Today we're going to continue with our final chapter about the southern kingdom. So let's jump right into it. As you remember, last week, the unified kingdom of Israel splits because Rehoboam, the son of Solomon, decides that he's going to listen to the counsel of his friends over the wise counsel. And he says he's going to increase taxes and he's going to use heavy labor against them. So the two kingdoms split, and the southern kingdom is Judah. Now, once again, these are surveys. There are several kings, but there's only a few that we're going to focus on. One of these kings is called Jehoshaphat. Jehoshaphat was a great king in the southern kingdom. He loved God. He made reforms. He put the Levites back in charge of priestly duties in the temple. But he has this unfortunate alliance with Ahab. And remember, we did talk about Ahab last week, who was married to Jezebel. So Jehoshaphat has a very tough task ahead of him, that there's a kingdom that is going to invade Judah and take over. So Jehoshaphat seeks the Lord for help. And the Lord tells him that everything is going to be okay. So as they're going into battle, Jehoshaphat decides to put the praise and worship team, not the exact name, but I think we understand what a praise and worship team. So he puts the praise and worship team at the beginning of the front lines of the army formation, and they're singing praises and worship to the Lord. And this causes the God to go into action, spreads a spirit of confusion on the enemy, and they end up killing themselves even before Judah comes to battle. The problem with Jehoshaphat, as well as with many of the other kings, is that they don't truly get rid of idol worship in the southern kingdom. So next, we're going to talk about the king Uzziah. And what is so amazing about Uzziah is he rules for 52 years, the longest of any king in the southern or even another northern kingdom. And he spreads the borders through military might. His fame spreads even down to Egypt. And even the neighboring countries are paying tribute to him. But he really messes up in that he tries to go into the temple to make a sacrifice that only the priest can make. This causes judgment to rain down from God on Uzziah. He gets struck with leprosy. And the priests rush him out because he cannot be into the temple. And he spends his last days pretty much in exile. The other thing I want to mention is, even while Uzziah is reigning, there's a prophet Micah who receives the call from God to really call out against a lot of the injustice that is going on. And so Micah prophesies that Judah, they need to walk humbly and they need to do justice, while Uzziah is just not the best king. He's good militarily, but not good as far as worship goes. And something really happens around the latter years of Uzziah reigning, and we get a major prophet by the name of Isaiah who starts to really minister. And what's so impactful about the prophet Isaiah is that he prophesies, we're looking at a period of about 36 years. That's how old I've been alive. Let me rephrase it. That's how long I've been alive. So the entire time that I've been alive, Isaiah has been prophesying throughout the southern kingdom of Judah. The other thing is, he talks about justice, he talks about liberty, he talks about Judah doing the right thing. He also talks about the Messiah. And he prophesies that the time is coming when God is going to send his servant to correct all of the wrongs that are going on in the world. And this is a very key figure who takes on more meaning later on. But it's through the prophet Isaiah that we hear about the Messiah. We hear about the universal reign of the Lord. The unfortunate thing is Isaiah actually ends up being killed by Manasseh. The other key thing that we hear a lot about Isaiah is he also is prophesying throughout a few kings. One of these is the king Hezekiah, who is one of the best kings in Judah's history. Hezekiah does more reform throughout priestly worship concerning keeping the covenant and getting rid of a lot of the altars that are around. Now, he doesn't totally get rid of false worship and idol worship, but he is one of the few kings that is featured and known to have the heart for God, just like David did. Now, Hezekiah receives a prophecy from Isaiah that he is about to pass away. So Hezekiah prays to God and calls to God everything that he has done, and God grants him 12 more years to live. It's during this time, and it's a very famous depiction in the Bible, Hezekiah turning his face to the wall, crying out and praying to God. It's a beautiful piece of worship and prayer. And in these 12 years that Hezekiah gets, he also has his son Manasseh during this time. It's also during this time that there is an envoy from Babylon. And Hezekiah brings them in, shows them all of Jerusalem, and he shows them the temple. This will later come back and haunt them. And then Hezekiah passes away, and he is succeeded by his son Manasseh. And if Hezekiah was one of the greatest kings in Judah's history, his son Manasseh is the worst king in the southern kingdom. And he has child sacrifice, there's witchcraft, there's all kinds of crazy worship going on. He kills Isaiah, one of the greatest prophets in the southern kingdom. And he just does all kinds of bad. And he is so awful at king that the Lord decides he's going to get rid of Judah. Now, while Manasseh is horrible at the beginning, his last few years, he repents, he gets it right. God has mercy on him, but his judgment against Judah still stands. Now, there are a variety of other kings that come up during this time. Every single one of them is pretty bad, with the exception of Josiah. Josiah does pretty good. But eventually, at around 586 BC, Nebuchadnezzar, who is the king of Babylon, he marches in, destroys Jerusalem, and destroys the temple. And then Judah goes into exile. And exile is one of the worst things that can happen to Israel because it was the land that was the promise, that it completed the prophecy to Abraham, to Isaac, and to Jacob. It is a callback to what happened in Genesis when Adam and Eve get exiled. And it is a reminder that they did not keep the covenant. Next, we're going to go into exile to see what is going on with God's people. Is there any more hope for them? Come back and check us out next week.